Good evening, good evening, good evening. I'm sorry I'm tardy for the party. I wanted to watch my dear sweet sister, Jula Prevalon, and a group of other strong, courageous, honest, candid women host a discussion, a panel discussion on Black women, motherhood, and grief. And so I said I was going to come on at 8:30, and last week I said I was going to do lives consistently on Sundays, but I had to watch this panel discussion because one, it's Mother's Day, and what better conversation to have in a safe space about Black motherhood, grief, and naming what that grief is as mothers. So I want to pause to honor the mothers that we love, the mothers that we've lost, and the mothers that we maybe have some estranged relationship with, mothers who we can't see today because of social distancing and time and space. I'm hundreds of miles away from my mother. Shout outs to Gloria Ford. I did speak with her today. I want to honor every mother. Hi, brother. I'm glad to see you here on this live. Paying honor to mothers of children, mothers in spirit who want to have children and for whatever reason are unable to, mothers who have lost children, who have chosen not to give birth to children via abortion, or mothers who have given children up for adoption or who have miscarried, mothers who are maybe estranged from their children because, sometimes children get personalities and do their own thing and don't want to talk to you no more because they know more than you do, or whatever the case may be. Mother's Day is a culmination of happy and sad. There are people who love to celebrate Mother's Day, and there are people who cannot fathom celebrating a holiday that they have not their child or they have not their mother. So I hold space for all of those people in this moment. And I was grateful that I was able to even just sit and listen to seven women talk about the grief that we experience and the burden that we as mothers in honor, truth, and theory and practice go through, especially in the light of children who have been murdered, babies who have been murdered senselessly throughout the news within the past few months, and those mothers who are spending their first Mother's Day without those children. So I honor that space for them as well. Creating safe spaces, that's what I aim to do on Sundays like this because it is so important. This past week has been an emotional roller coaster, probably not just for me, but for many. Hi, Marisol. I love you. How are you? And so I know that a lot of people are experiencing a lot of different emotions: anger, frustration, grief, joy that you have loved ones in your safe space, in your close space, but that anger and that grief for other people who have lost. And then we've had some hard losses, just even in the music industry: Andre Harrell, Little Richie, Betty Wright, and the numbers just keep adding up. And it's like, how do you turn off this wheel so that you don't necessarily feel like you're grieving all the time? Because grief happens in cycles. But I'm going to say what I believe. I think it's okay to not be okay. The beauty of that is finding safe spaces to not be okay in. Whether you find a safe space in someone else, a therapist, your friends, or you make that safe space for other people to come and to seek from your well, because we become birthing wells for other people to create that environment so that other people can lament, other people can cry, other people can grieve, because that's just our reality, that we're living in these times where we spend a lot of time. I was just saying to my coworker this morning when I got off, I was like, excuse me, I was like, I spend half of my life being angry and the other half being tired. That's crazy. But if you turn on the news, if you live long enough, if you truly share in the journey of other people's stories, you can't help but to get angry. And at some point, you get tired of being angry because life is happening all around us. And life is happening at such a momentous time that it includes so many people losing their lives, so many people losing their children, so many people having to bury people at a time such as this. You know, we're in a pandemic. So not being able to honor people the way we would have months prior. And so we hold space for everyone who goes through something tumultuous as losing a mother or losing a child, and then saying, you know, because Happy Mother's Day should be kind and sweet and joyous, but we have to remember there are people who have no happy joy and honor in this day. And so we have to be kind and generous and loving on those individuals as well. I don't take for granted that some of my friends don't have a mother in the physical to call, to send a card, to drop a cup of coffee or breakfast or flowers to, in the physical. And so that may look like them going to a grave site. That may look like them, you know, turning to their left or right, or to their mantle where an urn is and ashes are that haven't been spread. And so we have to honor those moments in time with our friends and our loved ones who don't have what we may have, and not take that for granted. And that's no different with children. I have been overcome with emotion as it relates to Ahmad, and the space that is being held in his name and in his honor, because here we are months later dealing with something that should have been dealt with before we went into a pandemic. Now we know the powers that be in Brunswick, Georgia, and the Good Boys Club that held this down so that we wouldn't be exposed to it, so that we wouldn't kick up the dust, if you will, behind it. And now months later, ripping a new band-aid on the pain that their family is experiencing and has experienced, looking for resolve and looking for justice and looking for answers and looking for a country to finally own up to the abhorrent racism, the despicable murders, the excuses, the hiding fouls, the, oh, let me share this video in the hopes that it'll get my friends off conversations, this asinine thing that we think it's okay to be these ways. And yes, I did say bees these ways. In this country, it's like, what excuse do you have, or what justification can you give for killing someone who was running in a neighborhood in which they reside in, you know, a community which they work and live and play and thrive and survive in? And so holding space for those conversations and hearing friends and family alike saying they're sick and tired or being sick and tired. And so a couple of days ago, I was having this conversation with my mother, and we were talking about how I was feeling, and I had taken a mental health day on Wednesday, and I was telling her, I was like, you know, I'm just tired. I'm tired of turning on my phone. I'm tired of seeing messages from people. I'm tired of having to put a smile on my face when I'm anything but happy in that moment. And you know, you have to carry the light for other people because that is important too. But you also have to be transparent about where you are and how you feel, so you give other people permission to feel safe in that space to feel those things too, because you're not alone in feeling the way you feel most times. And hello to everyone else that came in the room and is in this conversation. Laura, Kente, Nikita, Marisol, I already said hi, but hi, honey, again. And so I was having that conversation with my mother, and she was like, you know, she hadn't even known what was going on in terms of the young man, Ahmaud Arbery. And so I was telling her the story, and I was telling her, I feel like this fire that's burning in me has to get out. Sometimes I feel like our gifts are too big for our bodies. And I say that because our gifts are meant to be shared. They're not meant to be just sitting idle in us. And so I was telling her, I said, I feel like I should be doing something. I feel like I should be starting something. I feel like I need to be saying something, and not just poetry. Many of you know me. I write poetry. I love to engage people poetically because it inspires, it incites, it creates conversations, but sometimes that's just not enough. And yes, that platform is beautiful and it's candid and it's honest and it's authentic and it's transparent, but sometimes that's not enough. So I had a real good cry on Wednesday. I did do some poetry, but it was like, what now? What now? Because we can be angry. And then I had a conversation that very next morning, and the gentleman that I was having the conversation with, in that moment, he needed a safe space to unpack his aggression, to unpack his anger, to unpack his frustration with us being murdered, with us being hunted, with us being killed. Black and brown faces only become important when we become hashtags. Let me say that again. Black and brown faces only become important when we become hashtags. People are Googling us at an exponential rate because they're like, who was this person? And instead of wondering how they lived, because that's what's most important, we're obsessed with how they died. And so you have news media outlets and police and law enforcement trying to dig up dirt on how this person lived to paint a picture of an innocent person being a criminal, instead of discussing who they were and how they were loved and how they were cherished and how they were honored and how they lived as someone's son or someone's father or someone's brother or someone's uncle or someone's cousin or someone's son or someone's daughter or someone's mother or someone's aunt or someone's niece or someone's child. We have to look at how they lived and honor that. And we have to not pay so much attention to the people who are destined, hell-bent, whose only agenda is to silence us, to mute us, to turn us off, to run us ragged, to take us off our kingdom and queendom paths, because I believe in each one of us, the rich soil from which we were robbed from and then brought to a place where we were made to build it up. It desires us. It recalls us, and it demands from us to return back to which we were birthed from, which is richness, and to honor in ourselves the royalty in which we each all were birthed with, because they see us as a threat. They see us as these criminals. They see us as these bad people, and we're anything but. And then you may have stolen a pack of bubble gum when you were 7 years old, and that's the only thing being played when you're murdered, opposed to your community affiliation, your volunteerisms, your network, the job that you may be having, the entrepreneurship that you may have started. Those things aren't even taken into an account. So as I'm unpacking this and listening to, unpacking this with my mother and listening to the very next day, the gentleman, and I was completely entranced in his emotion, because it was real and it was authentic and it was raw, and it wasn't a moment for me to necessarily relate, although I could. It was a moment for me to hear him and to allow him to trust that the space that he was in was safe and that it was sacred, and I wasn't judging him for feeling the way he felt, because that place needed to be had and he needed to be able to vent. And he had been trying to ignore the videos and the conversation surrounding Ahmaud's death. But when he called me that morning and I had missed his first call and returned the phone call back, I was like, yo, what's up? Good morning. How are you? And he just went straight into it. And I just sat there and I listened and I said a silent prayer, because we need to be present and aware, not just for ourselves, but for each other. Yes, we're going through a pandemic, but we're also going through a war. Hey, Andre. And it's a war for our lives and our livelihood and our peace and our sanity and our children and our babies. Of course, as mothers and fathers and, those who love you. We pray for our little people and our big people, because we do lose adult brothers and sisters as well. We pray for you when you walk out the door. We pray for you when you come back in the door. We rejoice having you in our presence. And so it would be remiss to say that we don't need each other, because we do. So I was offering that safe space to him because I knew in that moment he needed it before he walked into his job to give back to his, as his work, as his life service, because there was a boiling, a rage, a slow simmer. It was cooking in a way that if he hadn't found that release, it could have caused him to behave in a manner that other people outside of that safe space see as uncharacteristic and question you and every other good deed you may have done prior because of that one slip. And so I want to say it's okay to be angry. And that's what I told him. It's okay to be angry and sin not. And that's what we were having a conversation after he had finished with his moments of mental clarity or mental breaking, whatever you will. And I was like, even the Bible says be angry and sin not. So be angry and let that anger fuel your ministry, your movement, your conversations, your next steps, your activism, your revolutionary experience. Let that anger fuel that. Give it a spark. Let it aid that fire that's burning within you. But don't let that anger cause more chaos or more confusion. I'm not saying we need to stage a peaceful protest, and I'm not saying we need to walk around with guns and be militia. What I'm saying is we have to do something that raises our collective voices, that allows us to have some level of cohesiveness, and allows us to have conversations in safe spaces, whether it's a safe space forum, whether it's a table talk, whatever it may, a Facebook Live with this pandemic where we can't necessarily be in the same room having these conversations because of social distancing. We still need to have these conversations. And so it is my hope, and tying that back into what I had said to my mother, because then I had talked to her every single day since Wednesday. And so I was saying to her, I was like, Mom, I think that the burning inside of me, the fire that's burning in my belly, and now the things that have happened with Ahmaud Arbery and Sean Reed and the discussion behind Breonna Taylor, and there's so many others within this, week-long discovery of people who have been murdered senselessly. I was like, there's a call of action that needs to take place. And the burning inside of me, that fire, that kindling, is kind of a knock, knock. You need to show up. And you need to show up not just for yourself, but you need to show up for your brothers and sisters. You need to show up and create the safe space and be the safe space and carry on the conversation. And so I was saying to her, and I been praying about it, and for those that are seeing this and those that have been reached out to specifically, where this is going. So I said to my mother, revolutionaries, they get killed, and revolutionaries, they go to jail, and revolutionaries get hate mail, and revolutionaries get death threats. And I said, but I feel like I would be living less than my best life if I didn't walk in this idea, in this conversation of being a revolutionary. You guys have to excuse me. My dog is in the background whining, and I'm trying to ignore him. But I think listening to her say, for such a time as this is the time, Shannon, take the steps necessary if that's what you feel is being placed on your heart. And so I was just trying to glean from her motherly wisdom, because here I am, her baby. I'm the youngest of two. And I was like, nobody really knows me, and I'm okay with that on most days. And then to be able to register a name, start an organization, build a movement, or whatever the case may be, and then having people now know that you exist because you're going to be registered with, your state, and then that subsequently is going to register you with the IRS, and that subsequently is going to register you with the FBI, and that's going to put you on a list. And one of my staff said, you do realize you've always been a revolutionary. You've always been a person who says what you feel, and you're very authentic in that. He said, but you have to keep in mind that there are also people who are in groups and movements who their sole purpose is to take you down. And that was sobering. That became the fuel needed to propel me into making the decision on Friday. You're going to do this. This has to happen. You need to step up and stand out, not by yourself, but collectively with people who align themselves with the idea that we can't afford to have another hashtag. We can't afford to bury another child. We can't afford to labor for days and hours and minutes as we bring new life into the world, only to turn around and have someone who does not care about our child murder them senselessly. And so as I've been lamenting with my other sisters of young Black men, and holding space for my brothers of Black men, fathers of Black men, and having a balance of, where do we go from here? What conversations do we need to have? How do we continue to light the path so that other people can come alongside us? We need allies in this movement. How can we continue to have this conversation so that we can hold community leaders accountable in this movement? Because until they make this a priority and not just a problem, we're not going to get any progression. We're not going to see the progress that we need. And I do realize that there is no progress without struggle. And so this is not going to be easy. The fight is not going to be smooth. The direction may take on different spins and turns, and may look different over time, but I'm aiming for longevity and consistency and cohesiveness of collective voices, because a lot of times we start movements and we don't continue movements because too many people want to lead it, but people don't want to lead with that one voice, that one unified voice. And so it is my aim and my hope and my desire that we can charge full speed ahead with the understanding that enough is enough. Every day I turn on something and I see another name, which means another family has to lay to rest someone who was gone too soon. And we're GoFunding me and chicken dinners and t-shirts, and nothing's wrong with any of that. Don't misread me. But we shouldn't have to do those things because those people should still be alive. They should be thriving, surviving, loving on family members in self-isolating spaces during a pandemic like you and I. They should be preparing for their next semester of virtual school because campuses are closed, or getting ready to build a business because they decided, now that I've been laid off for a month or two, I have to decide to do something that's going to bring me some form of peace and understanding and comfort, because enough is enough. Putting our money into ourselves is what's important. Investing in our communities and our education and our children and our relationships as Black and brown faces is of the utmost. Is essential. It is necessary. There are so many things that we could have conversations from, but until we start investing not just in properties or schools or things like that, but just investing in ourselves and doing it cohesively and doing it unified and doing it together, we aren't going to see the type of momentous things that we are desiring. We're not going to see change. We're not going to be able to disrupt the current wave that we are experiencing, even from the top administration to our own communities within city officials and community leaders and things that like that. We have to hold not just ourselves, but each other accountable and have those conversations about how do we get from here to there, and when we get there, then what? because just because we get somewhere does not mean it stops. The fight will never stop. And I honor the conversation 2 nights ago with Nikki Giovanni and Angela Davis. And Nikki Giovanni said that the thing with Black Lives Matter was not that it started, it was that it started and it stopped. They had a rally, they did a protest, they made shirts, they sent out flyers, they called people. But after so many of those, they stopped doing that. And the thing about revolutionaries, the thing about rebels, the thing about abolitionists, the thing about when you get into a movement, the work can't stop. Activism can't stop. You have to continually activate your mantra, your mission, your vision, your aim in hopes that you can one day eradicate the problem that was present when you started. So here we are when BLM started on the height of what was going on in Ferguson, and yet there has still been momentous occasions of joy and victory amid murders and things of that nature. We still have to have the conversation about things haven't stopped. Things haven't slowed down per se. Things are tucked away in corners and hidden and put away because they don't want us to know that they're still doing these things. Hence, Ahmaud's death happening 2/23. We hearing about it end of April, beginning of May. And so we have to continue the movement. We have to continue activism. We have to continue to activate in our communities, go out into the country, go out into the world, activate our voices, voting, activate our voices, city hall, town meetings. We have to be able to assert ourselves because we, the people, are who our community leaders, our city officials, our administration are supposed to be serving. We, the people, are who law enforcement is supposed to be protecting and serving. Now, I am not ignorant, and I would be remiss if I didn't feel that the world and the government, specifically here in these United States, was written with certain individuals in mind. I know this. You know this. But that does not mean that we can't still hold people accountable when they are voted into office, when they are elected, when they are chosen, because they are still servicing the community. And if you live in that community, you count too. You matter too. And you shouldn't matter after you become a hashtag. It shouldn't be like, oh, this is egregious and we need to deal with this now that you're a hashtag. Your life mattered before they added a hashtag to your name. And that's the conversation we need to have moving forward so that we don't have to continue to add names to hashtags. So today, before I came to work, because I live at work. I'm at work now. A thing happened and I don't even know what I was thinking about. I don't know what was going on in my head. But I was getting ready for work and this thing happened. And so I'm going to share this with you. One, because I need to finish it. I shared it with my mom already because I had to keep repeating it in my head so I wouldn't lose it, because I desire to also be a songwriter, but songs are a little difficult for me because when I have the melody in my head, if I don't have a piece of paper, I forget the song. So I kept repeating this poem fragment in my head so that I could record it when I came out of the bathroom before I went to work. And so I was like almost like a chant trying to memorize it. And so bear with me because I don't know if I have it memorized now, even though I repeated like 29 times. And so I'm going to pull up because I had to write it down so I also wouldn't lose it. I think it's going to be called Another King Gunned Down, but I do not know yet. So again, this is just the beginning stages of it. Please feel free to tell me what you think of it. You can inbox me, text me. Y'all know how to reach me. But my mom said you need to finish this. So we'll see. And then I'm going to let y'all go because I do have work to do. Don't tell nobody that though. So without further ado, the fragment of a poem that came to my mind while in the shower. And so, which hopefully will be called Another King Gunned Down. They outline your black body in white chalk and put numbers next to bullets and bloodshed. And then they bring up the past lives that you led in a hopes to make the innocents criminal. As if the horrendous wasn't already subliminal, but we ain't stupid. See, we know the effects of Cupid, and this ain't that. As a matter of fact, we got bull's eyes on our back, momentums that keep us off track, and because they think we're black, we lack. But we don't lack anything. Although we were robbed of rich soil, we still have it implanted within us, among us, because of us. Crippled by the possibility that they only dig our rhythm and not our blues. But every time we turn on the news, we see another king gunned down. Another king gunned down. See, long before Martin and long after Luther, another king gunned down. Round for round, pound for pound, they take away our dignity as if they want to create a new form of misery within us. But we will not allow another hashtag to plague us because we are kings and queens. We will not allow another despair cripple our system. The system we are creating within our wombs as we birth children who shine like the moon, who are as rich as the sun, and yet another king is gunned down. That's a snippet. I'm going to stop there because then I started free flowing. Actually, it ended long before that, but I felt like I needed to keep going, so I did. But thank you, Danny. Thank you, Danny Lynn. The hope is that I can finish that tonight. I never considered myself a spoken word poet, but I want to use my talent and my gifts to spark conversations. We're not meant to be comfortable. We're not. We're meant to create. We're meant to connect. We're meant to have conversations. And until we can all feel like all lives matter, we have work to do. So this is my work. This is my life's work. And I think my passion and my purpose are being pursued in ways that now it all makes sense. And so I'm going to walk in that truth and I'm going to walk in that light, even though it seems scary at times. And like I told my mother, revolutionaries, they get murdered, and revolutionaries, they go to jail, and revolutionaries, they get hate mail, and revolutionaries, they get death threats. But I'll say I welcome that, because my life would not mean anything if I didn't stand for those who didn't get to stand for themselves. And my life would not mean anything if I didn't stand and lament for other people who are losing their lives on a daily just for the sole reason of their color of their skin. And so we got work to do. Put your boots on, put your armor on, gear up. Use your talent, use your time, use your connections, use whatever you have. I am not necessarily a by any means necessary, but by any means necessary. Let your collective voices be heard. We will not be silenced and we will not be moved. We will not allow another hashtag to go seen without our voices being heard. So this is my call to action. This is my safe space for everyone who is also with me, lamenting for lives lost. This is also the safe space I'm honoring for those who are mothers and who have lost mothers, who are birthing and who have lost children or desire to have children or don't know if they ever want children. I hold spaces for all of you as well, as I said earlier in my discussion of this day. So Sundays are for safe spaces. I'll be back next Sunday to have more conversations with you. The topic may look the same. It may be different. I don't know. If you have things you want to discuss, please bring them to my inbox. You can put them on my page. You can text me if you have my number. You can house party me if you need to. I am an open door and I'm available to hold safe spaces for each one of you, my brothers and sisters, and my allies, because we can't do this alone. Y'all be safe. Y'all love on y'all people. You take care of one another. Take care of yourselves. Give yourselves permission to feel and to not be okay. But when you sit in that anger, fuel it for something productive and something that allows people to let you know that you are not going to sit down and just take it. You are going to show people that you are here to fight. And that's what we do. We are going to fight with each other. We're going to fight for each other. We're going to fight against this thing called racism, inequality, injustice. We're going to fight against it all. We're going to take one at a time. We're not going to eat off the whole elephant at once, but we are going to do this, and we are going to do it, and we are going to do it, and we're going to do it some more. Because we are sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I love each and every one of you, those who have watched the live, those who will watch the live, those who will hear about the live, because we do that too. We be like, oh, did you see what girlfriend did today? So thank you so much. Y'all have a wonderful evening. Thank you for investing your time and space with me. Excuse me for always rambling, and thank you for allowing me to do so. I will see y'all next Sunday around the same time. Be blessed.